I think probably the most important thing I've learned is like that ritual of like coming back to self each time. And I think I experienced that differently with each album and each season. I think that's the biggest challenge with, pursuing music or any artistic career of any sort. It's just like that ritual of coming back to, okay, who am I? Why am I doing this? Why is this important for me?
Got all the treats you could possibly need.
I know. I'm like, what do I do first?
Yeah, I mean, feel free to grab any treats that catch your eye.
All the color.
But before we get into everything, I'm sitting with an icon today.
Stop.
Today we are joined by an artist who is always ahead of her time, constantly innovating, in the middle of such a major explosion following her newest masterpiece, Bird's Eye, Chicago's very own Ravyn Lenae. Welcome to RoyalTeas.
You're so sweet. The intros always give. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So excited to talk with you today. Yeah. Let's pick out some teas.
Okay.
I have some options here, and you let me know what you'd like.
Okay.
I know you said you prefer a non-caffeinated
Non-caffeinated. I wish I could do caffeine. It makes my stomach hurt.
Yeah, no, that's real.
I think the elderberries sound really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you drink tea often?
I try to, like before shows, I try to do like a throat coat. But even sometimes when I have a hard time settling at nighttime, I do like a sleepy time tea, or I put like magnesium in my tea just to like wind down.
I'm a big fan of the magnesium in my tea before bed. Also, I have a fun tea theme question for you. If your sound was a tea blend, what kind of tea blend would it be?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think if I would have to describe my sound, it would be maybe a cinnamon spice blend. I think there's something really grounding and earthy about my music, but then there's also something that gives a little like bite to it along with some sweetness. So I think that juxtaposition of kind of sweet, bitey, pinchy, but still like enjoyable and digestible, I think is my music.
Yeah, warm and welcoming, comforting. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I would be your #1 buyer of your
yes.
For sure. So Ravyn, your growth in the public eye has been quite the slow burn. You've been around at this for a while, but the real ones know that you've been around since your first EP in 2016.
Yeah.
What was it like entering the music industry at such a young age?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, honestly, that was a period of my life where I wasn't thinking too hard about like the output of music or what like it could do in return for me. A lot of it was so instinctual, and being from Chicago, I think that was the perfect place for me to be, to experiment and figure out what my sound was. And there was so many places to go to figure that out. There were a lot of open mics or talent shows, or just the overall landscape of like the Chicago poetry music scene was so impactful for me. So being able to meet people like Monty Booker and Smino and Classic Studios so early on in my career, I think was everything for me, because I had the space to really experiment and make music that I felt was so true to me at the time. But I think the business side of it was something that I was, I tried my best with.
Yeah.
So it was like my mom, she was around a lot during that time because I was 15, walking into meetings and staying late at bars, performing with X's on my hands because I wasn't supposed to be in there. But having my mom there to really guide me through these moments, I think was so impactful for me, and us learning a lot at the same time, And I think, starting so young and having all this time to figure out, what my voice is and how to stand up for myself in, rooms where it may be male dominated, or, I may be the youngest person in the room. I think it just taught me a lot of, molding who I want to be and what type of artist I want to be.
Yeah, when you think back to those early days of really just getting into the music industry, starting to become a full-time artist, when you think about your original expectations of what it would be like from where you're at now, like what aspects of being a full-time artist in your career have exceeded your original expectations and maybe failed your original expectations?
I think when I first started putting music out, and I had like the first thoughts about what a music career looks like, I never even thought that you could really like pay your bills while doing music. And I never thought about it. I still don't. Usually when I play shows, like at the end of it, I'm like, oh, I'm getting paid for this. I forgot, you know, because that's just so, I don't know, like when I'm on stage or when I'm performing, when I'm making music, like that is water for me, you know. So I think that definitely exceeded my expectations very early on, even when I was doing performances for $50, for $100. That was like, oh, that showed me that there was like a reward for showing up as yourself. And I think that was important for me to see early on. The thing that I maybe underestimated was the amount of times I would have to come back to myself after maybe drifting along the way. And I think that's a normal human experience, but it may be a little more heightened when you're doing it publicly, but also, you know, trends happen and then you meet other people and you think that you're supposed to be on this road and you start comparing. And I think probably the most important thing I've learned is like that ritual of like coming back to self each time. And I think I experienced that differently with each album and each season. I think that's the biggest challenge with, you know, pursuing music or any, you know, artistic career of any sort. It's just like that ritual of coming back to, okay, back to square one. Who am I? Why am I doing this? Why is this important for me?
Yeah, you think you figured it out. Sometimes you think you know yourself, and then you encounter a new chapter of experiences and people, and then you're right back to square one, like you said.
Exactly.
It's a constantly evolving journey of finding yourself, which is, it's a beautiful thing at the end of the day. Kind of looking back to the early days, things sparked for you pretty quickly as you were leaving your high school classes to open for Noname and SZA.
Yeah.
And leaving school to go on tour is a huge jump. So what did it take for you to make that leap and decide to go on tour?
I think when I remember where I was when I got that email from Noname's team about going on the road with her. I was in my computer class in high school, and I remember I screamed, and I showed my friend who used to sit next to me in that class, and she was like, girl, what you gonna do? And I was like, it's not even a question for me. I'm a go, you know? And I think going to Shy Arts art school that encouraged that type of thing was good for me, you know, too. But they had never had an artist have the opportunity to go on tour while school is in session. So that was even a learning thing for both of us. And girl, when I say I didn't do a lick of homework the whole time, they were emailing like, hey, just checking in. Are you gonna send in your paper? But it was just such a cool thing to experience. And I'm forever grateful to Noname for seeing that in me and giving me that experience so young. I'll never forget that.
Yeah. What were the conversations with your family and your teachers like when you made that decision to go on tour?
Ooh, I don't remember any pushback from like the school or, you know, my family, they've been 100% like on this journey with me this whole time. So there was never a moment where I felt discouraged by them or like I wasn't making the right decisions. They really encouraged me to like follow that intuition and, you know, so I'm happy that I have a family that saw that and was like, wanted to support that however they could.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the school, they were excited about it, but they didn't really have like the framework to be able to like, hopefully now they do.
I bet you like helped them learn some lessons, you know?
Hopefully now they do. But yeah, I remember everybody just being excited for me, honestly.
Yeah, I'm glad you had that support at that time.
Yeah.
When did you start to experience a level of financial success where you knew full-time music would be stable for you?
I think that's always been kind of up in the air for me. I think anybody who's pursuing something like this, there's the ups and downs of it. And there's some seasons you feel like, okay, cool, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I'm able to pay my bills. And then there's other times where you're like, what? Why am I doing this? Like, is this the right thing? Am I wanted in this space? You know? So I think my whole career has been kind of that pendulum of like emotions around like stability and security. I think being able to sign to a label so young definitely gave me that in a sense.
Right.
But I would say honestly, like this last year, I think I've experienced like, oh, okay, this is what it feels like to like let down my hair in music and like, I don't know, I can make decisions differently, I think. And that's like, I think reward for putting in so much time and, you know, obviously having a song have a moment, I'm just seeing like, oh, this is how, you know, the beginning stages of really setting the framework of, you know, my business and how I want to continue to develop that.
Yeah, you really have earned that moment through all the work you've put in. Like, as a fan who's been listening to you since like the Crush EP, just seeing you put in that consistent work and knowing that you're finally in that place, like, I'm very happy for you.
Thank you. I feel like, honestly, I just feel like everybody who's been with me from the beginning, including you, like, that means so much to me, and I feel like this is a celebratory moment for all of us. Whenever I do my shows or I see, you know, the people who've been riding with me in person, like it feels like this like familial like army behind me, and I don't take that for granted.
The Ravyn Lenae army is strong.
They don't play.
They do not play about
with
you.
The hats on, ready to box.
Before becoming a full-time artist, how much did you truly understand about all of the types of royalties within music and all the different ways in which you can monetize a song?
I don't think I knew that much about it. Honestly, I was putting music out on SoundCloud, and I think during that time, we weren't really thinking about how we could make money from that. I think there was something so pure about that time. But I think now, I think it's incredible that, you know, even younger artists coming up are able to figure out ways to, you know, monetize that. And obviously with things like TikTok and Instagram, that's important to give artists that stability to be able to keep doing what they're doing. So I think I'm still learning about, you know, how all of that works in regards to, you know, even my online persona and how that links back to the music and gives people an idea of like who I am and the brand and what the world is, you know. I hope that answered that.
Yeah,
okay.
It's a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit more about just like getting your bearings in the industry as you've grown. Tell me about a challenge you've experienced due to being new in the industry and what you learned from that experience.
I think a challenge I've experienced was definitely early on. I've done a lot of opening slots and like some really cool opening slots. And I think through that, doing that so early and so young, I was able to understand what it means to have to win over a crowd.
Yeah.
And that can be something that's so intimidating and humbling. But I think those experiences really gave me like the perspective I needed to like understand like, oh, okay, like just because you feel like you make good music and you know you're honest in it and you're true and you're consistent, like that's not enough. There's something about you that has to like really win over a crowd. And I think I was so intimidated about that at first, and I would get frustrated. Like there were times I was on tour and I would like have to have like mental health days because I felt like I wasn't connecting with the crowd or they didn't want to see me. There were times I got booed off stage.
Oh my God.
There were times the curtains closed on me. So just really going through that gave me a lot of like perspective and thick skin to be able to really walk into any room and like be prepared for anything.
Yeah, times like that will definitely make you strong.
No, like when the curtains closed, it was like the Patrick moment where you're just like...
Another amazing opening you had was opening for SZA on the Control tour. And through that, you also had a front row seat to her growth.
Yes.
You got to see how she slowly built after the album and over the tour.
Yeah.
So since releasing Bird's Eye last August, you've also experienced a really similar beautiful pattern of growth, and with Love Me Not blowing up.
Yeah.
So watching SZA's growth experience through that 2017-2018 tour, what did you learn from experiencing her growth that you still keep with you today?
Great question. I think about that tour all the time.
Yeah.
Through different moments in my career, especially now, because now I can understand what that moment felt like in a way.
Yeah.
And me being able to have a front row seat of that, I feel like I took so much away. One of the main things being how much goes into like showing up on stage. You know, I think a lot of people don't think about or understand what all goes into it. And there were times that I knew she was tired, I knew she was sick, I knew she maybe didn't eat that day, I knew maybe there was a 5-hour delay at the airport, you know, like those things, and like seeing her push through that and in real time, like growing. I remember on the tour, like they were changing like the venues as we were going because they were too small. So seeing that that happened in real time and like seeing someone's breakthrough that close and intimately was like, I'll never forget that.
What do you think are some aspects of blowing up in the way you are right now that aren't talked about enough or that you would like to shed more light on?
Oh, I think there's something so special about how it happened for me and like having the time to be able to even understand who I am as an artist more. So there's something about this moment that feels like it was welcomed and I was like ready for it, you know? So there like majority of it feels that way for me right now, but then there's the other side of it. Like I knew that my career would change, but then I don't think anybody prepares you for like everything outside of that also shifting.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I'm working through and like trying to grasp and navigate. So I think I always thought, yeah, like the career would change and like the pace would change, the rhythm would change, but then it's like, oh, everything else around that has to shift too to make room for what's happening.
Right.
So I think I'm a person who has a hard time with the dramatic change.
Right.
And I think the career change felt natural, but I think it's everything else around it, like my personal relationships or like the time I get to spend with my family and like just feeling like maybe things are out of your control in some ways, and that's not a feeling I'm used to. So I think that's the main thing I'm talking about with my therapist.
How has like therapy been an aid to you through this process?
I think it's important to have somebody outside of whatever you're doing to talk to, and that could be even a friend, you know. Sometimes I think that's therapeutic for me, to just have a girls' night, go to the movies, or lay on the couch and just laugh and giggle and cry. I think those are the things that fill me up, or going back to the South Side and spending time with my grandma and my mom, and just like those human moments that bring you back down to like real life. I think it's important to like supplement everything else that's happening.
As your career continues to go up, how involved are you in the business side of your career?
I think it's imperative that I'm like becoming more savvy with that and understanding what everything means, because I think sometimes things can move so quickly that it's easy to be like, oh, I don't know. But I think with me walking into this moment and also just getting older and having goals outside of music, it's important that I'm like very much in tune with what's going on and having a close relationship with my business manager and understanding what certain terminology means on contracts, you know. And luckily I have such a great team who like encourage that type of like perspective and learning experience through all of it. I'm terrible at math, so this is something that's very uncomfortable for me. But I think it's so important, like if I want to like have a fruitful career.
Yeah. Important to know and know enough to know, you know, like what you're getting into, but also we love having a business manager, so you don't have to get an accounting degree to understand what's going on.
This is good.
Yeah, the mint tea. So SoundExchange is always working to make sure that the music industry is more transparent, that artists are fairly compensated.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, looking back across your career, what were some of the earliest moments when you realized the importance of being fairly compensated for your work as an artist?
Once I started traveling more and getting on more tours and doing more shows that included, you know, flights and hotels and for women glam and all of those things that make it what it is on stage, I think that's when I understood that it's important to make sure I'm not spreading myself thin in these situations. And obviously I want to come and do a great job, but at the end of the day, like I want to make sure my team is paid fairly. I feel responsible that not only I'm fairly compensated, but the people around me who make it happen are also able to pay their bills and feel stable and excited about it, you know?
So in your tribute to the 1-year anniversary of Bird's Eye, you called this past year validating. Tell me more about the personal and financial validation you felt from your hard work paying off with Bird's Eye.
I think the main thing I learned throughout this period has been just trusting my gut, trusting my intuition, trusting my collaborators. Because we knew there was something so special about this album and so special about Love Me Not. And even even it happening like a year later, like my feelings never changed about the song from the day I recorded it and put it out to the day it started gaining traction. That told me like whatever is happening internally and in response to the music or in communication with the music is right. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes I can look at things around me that are happening and maybe lose sight of that, but this told me like, no, stay the course, do what you think is cool, do what you think is in, because I think that feeling eventually wins.
Totally. And again, like you're consistently ahead of your time.
Thank you.
Like such a trailblazer, and I love seeing you continuously like trust your intuition and trust your ideas, even if they're out there, because 2 to 3 years later they'll catch up. They'll understand. And that's really a superpower, and I admire it so much.
Thank you, babe.
Of course. Is there anything that you wish more people understood about you as an artist?
I don't know if there is. I think with time, like the more I expose myself in music, like naturally my relationship with my fans like deepen, you know, even with Bird's Eye, I feel like this was such a big leap into like a more like intimate relationship with my fans, you know, sharing things I've never shared before. I don't know, just really getting into the nitty gritty of who I am. And that's the most natural way for me to express myself. And I think my fans understand that and they know that and they look forward to that with each album. With the next project, maybe more will be revealed.
And I totally agree. Like with Bird's Eye, you opened yourself up to be so vulnerable and to be so understood, from the album art and the visuals, from telling the story of One Wish every time you perform it and telling that personal story. Like I just really admired the vulnerability.
Thank you.
And I feel like the fans who know you all do understand
They
you
understand.
very well. Yeah. If your legacy could be described in one word, what do you think it would be?
Can we come back to that? I wanna give you a good answer.
We definitely can.
Okay.
I have one remaining question.
Okay.
So you know how sometimes you'll get a tea bag and it'll have a little message on it? So if you could author an inspirational tea bag message, what would you want it to say?
Ooh, I would say, I usually love looking at those things. This one doesn't have one. I don't know, keep walking. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
I think the main thing about like success and like breaking through is the action of like waking up every day and making the decision to like take steps towards that. And I think that's like easily said, but like really putting it into action, I think it was like my shift. So yeah, maybe that.
Yeah, keep walking. I love that a lot.
Okay.
Circling back, any thoughts on your legacy? One word to sum it all up?
Electric. I don't know. I like that word because I think my favorite artists like ignited something like that in me from like an early age, and I hope that I leave that feeling, you know, when I'm not here anymore and people are still discovering my music. I hope there's still like that spark in the world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ravyn.
Thank you, babe. It's so good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you,
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I'm so proud of you and so excited to watch the growth continue. Excited about this new album you speak of. Shall we finish off with a little cheer?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yay. Incredible. And if you want to take any sweets for the road,
I probably will.
You're more than welcome to.
Ooh, this looks good.
A little lemon bar.
Oh, that's what that
I think that's a lemon bar.
Mm.
Yeah, a little sweet treat.
Yeah.
It's doing it. It's doing what it needs to do. Amazing. Wow. This was such a good combo, Ravyn. Thank you.
You too. It's always so good to catch up with you.
Yeah, it's great
honestly.
to catch up with you too.
Yeah.
Ready to get out of here?
Let's do it.
Let's go.